Hey, third grade. So today you are going to be looking at writing dialogue. So you have some examples, but I wanted to kind of go over the slideshow with you and use some of the teaching points to talk about. So whenever you start your Google Slides, you want to put your name where it says your name here. This just lets your teacher know and it easier for us to find your work. So the first slide, it says dialogue is a conversation. So whenever you use speech bubbles, you don't need quotation marks. So whenever you read a book like Piggy and Elephant, they don't have quotation marks because the speech bubble is showing you exactly where the quote or the words are coming from. So on this one, it just says fill in the speech bubbles to show what they might say. So this is just an opportunity for you to be creative. The next slide, it says a quotation begins with a capital letter. So you want to drag the circle over the capital letter at the beginning of each quote. Then at the bottom, it has you rewriting the sentence correctly because they did not use a capital letter to start their quote. On the next slide, it talks about pattern 1. We will talk about 2 patterns. Pattern 1 is when the speaker is first. So there's 2 parts to a quote: who is speaking and what are they saying. Depending on where they are, shows the different way to put punctuation and to put quote marks. So for this one, when the person who is speaking comes first, you want a capital letter. Then after you have who is speaking, you have a comma. Then after the comma, you have your first quotation mark. What they're saying, make sure you have that capital letter. You end their quote with a period and then an end quotation mark. So down here where it says type here, you want to erase that and then type John said, comma, quote, you are nice, period, quote. And you're just copying the sentence down there. Then on the next slide, you'll do the same thing, but with a question mark. Then on this slide, it's having you create your own sentences. So there's one for a period, one for a question mark, and one for an exclamation point. But make sure your words match the punctuation. So if I'm asking a question, you'll put it by the question mark. If you're having an exclamation, you're going to put it by the exclamation point. This is just another chance to be creative. Then this is the second pattern I was telling you about. With this one, this is when the speaker is at the end of the quote. So the quote starts it, you have your capital letter, and then with this one, the comma is actually inside the quotation mark when you are making a statement. Then you have your quote, and then who is speaking, followed by a period. So for this one, you just want to try and type the sentence using the correct capitalization and punctuation. On the next slide, it has you dragging either a period or a comma in between the quote and what the person is saying. Remember, if it ends in a period, so it's a statement, you're going to end the quote with a comma. So there's an example here. So you're just dragging those over. On this slide, it's showing you what it looks like with a question mark. So for this, you don't need a comma to explain what is being said or who is speaking. For this one, you're actually putting the question mark there instead of the comma. So it follows the same rule, but instead is your question mark. So down here where it says type here, you just want to retype the question, practicing your punctuation and capitalization. Then you have a similar slide to pattern 1, but this is just with pattern 2, so they're switched. You start with your quote, and then you have who said it. So again, you have the statement, which is what ends with the comma. There can't be a period there because we have a period at the end of our sentence. But then you can have the question mark and you can have the exclamation point. Your final slide is a chance to practice using words other than said. If you would have a story where everything is she said, he said, my mom said, it gets kind of boring. So you want to try and fill in these blanks where it says type with a word down at the word bank. You have yelled, wailed, whispered, cheered, asked, complained, screamed, shrieked, cried, whimpered, all these other words that mean the same thing as said, but they add more creativity to your writing. So this is going to be your writing dialogue. You are going to work through this at your own pace and trying to answer as many of the parts where it says type in here as best as you can.